All right, so again, just to quickly go over this, we meet Monday through Friday, 8:05 till 11:55. I'm typically here between 6:30 and 7. And the plan is when I get here, I'm just going to open the door up. All right, so if you want to come in early, that's fine. By no means do you have to. But now you weren't late today because of what you were going through. But they're really strict on their policy for people being tardy. And tardy also includes, well, it's 11 o'clock, he stopped lecturing, I'm just going to leave. If I see that, I'm supposed to actually mark you, if it's more than a half an hour absent, even if you were there. All right? And you might say, well, that doesn't sound fair, that's not right, what am I supposed to do? Well, we'll go over some of that, but there's all sorts of free resources online that you can get to that if you want to go on or if you don't, you want to start something new. All I'm going to ask, I don't want to be a cop around here. In other words, I don't want to walk around and say, hey, wait, get off of Facebook, type of an idea. All right? If you want to do that every once in a while or keep it down to a minimum, that's fine. People ask things. We've already had policies in here, for instance, cell phones. All right? And you're going to see that in here. What I like to adhere to is you put them on mute. If you know that you're going to be getting a call. I had a student a few years ago, his son was waiting for deployment to Iraq. And I understand that. He still kept his muted, but when he knew that call was going to come, he just left the room. I don't want people to have cell phone conversations in here, even if it's a lab day, all right? Just out of courtesy to the other people that are in here, all right? And if you do speak loud, if you don't know this, right when you go out the door here, if you go right around the corner to the right, that's where the bathrooms are, okay? And there are bathrooms, men's and women's, right there and right down below it on the first floor. And on the first floor, if you just turn and face the other direction, that's where the cafeteria is. So there's a room in there that you can go in, you can sit down, etc. It's going to be interesting. I don't know when the next class starts in here. I know if you don't know this, if you start going out towards, I guess that's the west, all the way to Mexico Drive, Rankin owns all that property. So they're already talking about building a new building, at least a new building. That probably won't happen while you're here, unfortunately. So we're sharing this. There's actually 2 different programs, but there's about 5 instructors who share this. And the reason I'm telling you that is probably there won't be a lot of time other than maybe early in the morning when these labs are not being used. And most of the classes run Monday through Friday. All right, so here's my information. My email is jpscott@rankin.edu. I would suggest not calling me for anything. Okay, I can get Rankin right through my phone. So if you're going to miss or you're going to something or you have to get a hold of me, I'd suggest sending me an email. It's just you will hear back from me faster. All right. And again, as they mentioned, we don't have any tutors, so I'm your teacher/tutor, okay? And one thing you gotta be kind of leery of, for lack of better words, because it'll happen. You're like, geez, I should know this, but you raise your hand anyway, okay? This morning I had to ask Charles a question. It was a dumb question. But I didn't say, hey, excuse me, I know this is really stupid, but, because when you do that, typically what happens is now everybody has stopped what they're doing and they want to listen because they want to hear what a stupid question is. All right, chances are pretty good if you've got a question about something, so does somebody else. All right. So I've already mentioned, if you didn't see this earlier, there are 2 books for the class. The one that we're going to cover for the first half of the class is right here. It's entitled Web Development and Design Foundations with HTML5. Now, good, bad, or indifferent, the PowerPoint lectures that I've already prepared for you were out of the earlier edition of this book. It's the 7th edition as opposed to the 8th. There's really not much difference between them. All right. And then once we get done with the first half of the course, then we go into this book right here. This is a JavaScript book. So if you've never done any programming, by the time you get done with this course, you will have done a lot. And what the programming is going to allow you to do, the first book is going to show us basically how to set up websites. All right. But not a lot as far as interactivity. But when you start adding JavaScript, then you'll be able to make your websites interactive. All right. So the book information is there. The course description, again, I don't want to read through it, all right? But there are 3 components. You're going to learn HTML and CSS from the first book. You're going to learn JavaScript from the second book. The first book, the one that we'll be going over right away here, the bigger book or taller book, that has a chapter in it on JavaScript, but we're not going to actually cover that chapter. All right? All right. These are the course level outcomes, so there's probably a lot of stuff in there that you may or may not have ever even heard of. So if that's the case, don't let that worry you. All right? There are no prereqs for the class, so as an instructor, I have to suppose that you have little to no experience. That may or may not be true. I'm not going to ask. I used to do that. I used to come up and have like a little thing in there where people would put down their experience, and then you'd get people who had very little experience, and they'd be very embarrassed because the person next to them is writing a book, you know, as far as what they can do, and they can't really do much of anything. All right. What has changed over time, I used to always start the first lecture of every new semester. I used to come in and draw a big rectangle on the board, and then I'd separate it into thirds. And I'd say the first third are people with very little experience. They might know how to get on a computer and maybe check email or go to Facebook, but they don't know anything else. On the other end, you get a lot of students, especially out of high school, who might have already programmed. Then you get everybody in the middle. What's happened over the years is that piece that's in the middle is basically shrunk down, so it's almost nothing. So you get a combination of people who know a lot and people who don't know very much. All right? And so it may seem sometimes like I'm going slow. If you already know the material or know a lot of the material, it may seem like I'm going fast. All right? If you don't know much of the material. I have to gauge it based on 2 things. The first is the syllabus and what we're supposed to be covering, but the second is your understanding. So if it turns out that there's 10 of you in here and you don't understand, all 10 of you don't understand something, we shouldn't go on until you understand it. But you'll have to let me know. I'm not that smart where I can sit there and figure out, oh, I don't think he understands that. All right? So unless you tell me, I won't know. We've already gone through the attendance. You just went through all that stuff here. All right? Again, I have a hyperlink in here to the college student handbook, and it used to be before this semester, this is what I was told, this is my first semester here, but what I was told is they used to always give you a hard copy of the student handbook. All right. The problem is after the first week, most of them got thrown away or just left in a room or whatever, and they were literally spending thousands of dollars running those off. All right. So in order to save money, they put them totally online. But if you do want them printed off, let me know. I'll attempt to get it printed off for you if you want a section of it or something printed off or whatever. All right. So the big thing again is the attendance thing. Since we meet 5 times a week, you get a max of 6. The way that it works, okay, just so you're aware of this, once you get a 3rd time you miss, for whatever reason, it may be very legitimate. You might be sick or something else. But after the 3rd time, I'm supposed to pull you off and meet with you separately, just for a minute or 2. Say, hey, you know, you're at 3 attendance, 3 misses. On the 4th one, I send it to Charles next door. All right, and Charles and Shannon go through it just so that they know what's going on. On the 5th one, all right, then you basically, you're 1 away, 1 strike away, you're at the limit. So typically what happens is you'll end up meeting with a bunch of instructors in the conference room over here, or we'll find you or something like that. Then at the 6th one, there's no recourse. Now, again, if you're sick, I've had that happen. It's funny because the first semester I ever taught, I literally had a problem with my throat. And they had to go out and buy a really nice microphone for me because I whispered for the first 3 weeks of class, because that's all I could do. All right. Now, if you're on death's doorstep, as they say, I don't expect you to come in here. Okay? But if you're not feeling that good, it's kind of like your regular job. Once you get hired on the job, you might not feel that great. Geez, I don't feel like coming in today. All right? We've all got those feelings. All right? Regardless of what the job is. So the excused absences, basically the way that I look at an excused absence is it'll be more for your 2nd year. You may not believe this, but there'll probably be at least 1 or 2 of you in here that after you finish your 1st year, you might get job offers. It's not at all impossible. So if you have a job interview or you're going to a job fair that's IT related and you let me know that, that can be an excused absence. All right, which means that you can make up the work. All right. Years ago, I had a student, and I'll tell you this, I'll go back and tell you a lot of stories, I'm sure, over your 2 years here, but, I had a student who came in one day, and I'm not making this up, but he just said, Jeff, I woke up this morning and I said, go to school, sleep, go to school, sleep, and sleep kept getting higher, and going to school kept getting lower, so I didn't come. All right, that's not an excused absence. All right. I will tell you, and I'm proud of this, in 27 and a half years as a teacher, I've taken 4 sick days. All right, so I don't get sick very often. All right, that's the good news. The bad news is that all 4 of them were within the last 2 or 3 years, because I guess as I'm getting older, I'm more prone to be sick. All right, we went over the academic honesty. The grading thing, again, just so you're aware of this, that the only grades that actually show are A, B plus, B minus, or B rather, C plus, and C. Okay? Now, I believe that F's and D's appear on your transcript, but they're not part of your GPA, technically. It says F, yeah, technically it'll go in there as a 0, but hopefully we won't get to that point. One thing that the school does make you do is, let's say that it's the end of this week, and you're like, you know what, this isn't for me, and I'm gonna withdraw from the class. When you want to withdraw from the class, you have to go over and see Jeremy. And to be honest with you, just so you know, his job is to talk you out of doing it. All right? So, the way that this is weighted, and it'll work pretty much like this. Now, this may or may not be fair, but it's the way that it is. Again, I'm adhering to the standards that Evan, who teaches these courses in St. Louis, this is the way he set it up. And as Shannon mentioned, this is all driven by our advisory committee, which are the people out in business and industry that ideally are going to be hiring you. All right? This is about the amount of time that you can think of spending in class or out of class working on different things. It'll vary for everybody. There are going to be days that are in here that are just denoted as lab days, which means you're still supposed to be here, but you have 3 hours and 50 minutes where you don't hear me at all. You have questions, you ask, etc. All right, but it's just for you to work. Again, if you're having any kind of problems, this looks like I believe I got an old version, unfortunately, of this here. But if you have problems, if you need tutorial assistance, again, go see Jeremy. All right, we've just talked about that. If you've got any kind of disability, you don't have to raise your hand and tell me now. But, again, as time goes on, we get more people who are diagnosed as ADHD or whatever it happens to be. Okay? ADD, whatever. Let me know, because it might be that you need more time to take a test or whatever. All right? Just so I'm aware of that. Snow days, they didn't tell you, but I found this funny. I guess last year they had about several inches of snow at St. Louis. Okay? So they called classes there. Unbeknownst to them, once they called it, they were immediately called here also. And there wasn't anything. So students basically just got a free day off. All right, they're trying to get around that in the other direction also. So in case it would be bad here. But again, if you have not signed up yet for that notification system, you really should do that as soon as you can. I've signed up for it when I first got here. I haven't gotten one email from them. So it's not like you're going to get deluged with emails. All right? All right. So rather than going through, I'm not going to go through 80 days. That would be, in my opinion, that would be silly for me to do this. But I want to go through the first week so you have some kind of an idea what we're going to be doing in here. All right? So you've had the class introduction. You've got the student handbook review. What I have here, and I'm going to have to open these up and pass them out so that you each get one. It's called a work ethic grade sheet. I'd like you to read it and date it and read the front and the back, and then when you get done, turn it back into me. If you want a copy, I'll be more than happy to make you a copy. But the idea is, if there are days that you are falling behind or that something is wrong, whatever that something happens to be, all right, so that you know what those are right away. this all, again, factors into that work ethic rate. I didn't realize that was that small. Let's see. All right. So, notice today, day one, we already went over that. I'm going to literally spend 5 or 10 minutes going over chapter 1 of your book. Now, I'm not even going to ask because you may or may not have the book, but I'm going to assume that you don't. All right, so what I've done, and this is legal for us to do as instructors, is I have copied the first 3 chapters of your book, and I have them in a Word file. All right, and I'm going to give everyone here, you're all going to get before you leave today, and I'm going to have to do this probably in the last half hour of class. I went out yesterday and I got for everybody, this is a flash drive for you, and I'm going to put it on the flash drive. You say, well, I've already got the book. Take the flash drive anyway. All right, my suggestion is that you put all of your homework and everything you do for the class on the flash drive. Okay? If you're working and you've got your own computer, great. Then you can handle it any way you want. But this always provides a really good backup for you. All right. So again, I'm going to go over chapter 1 very briefly and then go over chapter 2. I'm not going to read this, but these are the objectives. So we're going to start learning about HTML today. So if you've never heard of it before, you will have by the end of the class period. All right. Now, if you notice, tomorrow, it says lab day. I want to make it a lab day, okay? That said, I want to do 2 other things with you. And when you come in the morning, we'll see if you want to do them first or last. One is that we are going to go through an exercise that's at the end of each chapter. You don't have to turn it in, but we're going to build a website from very unbelievably crude to a pretty nice looking site. We're going to do that over the first 8 weeks. All right. The other thing is I've already created a different site for you. It's not real cool. It doesn't have a whole lot in it, but just so you can see how this stuff is done. I'd like to get into that tomorrow. Again, what you get from a technical college that you don't get from a 4-year college is you get tons of hands-on. I literally, in my experience as a teacher, I've had students from 4-year colleges who have already completed a class and have come back and taken my classes. I remember years ago I was teaching up in north central Wisconsin, and I had 2 students in the class who both came up to me during the break, and they said they were about to get their degrees from the University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point. And I said, well, geez, why are you taking this class? We already took a C class. I was teaching the C programming language. And they said, how many programs are you going to give in here? At the time, I gave a lot. I said 17. They were happy as heck. I said, what's so good? And they said, we had 2. And the first one, we literally wrote hello on the screen, and the second one we did with the instructor. All right, and I said, well, what'd you do the rest of the time? Well, we learned theory. That's not what this place is about. All right, there's very few places that you're going to interview at that are going to ask you theory questions. They're going to expect that you know how to do things, that you don't know everything, but in many ways that you'll be able to hit the ground running. I've had people, and I'm not exaggerating here, and I actually think that the market is better here than where I came from. But I had people who were graduating after 2 years and starting at jobs in the mid-50s to $60,000 a year. Now, that's not everybody. Some people were closer to half that. All right, but by and large, all students that I had that had a B average or above, the biggest problem that I had at the school I used to be at is I had people leaving after a year because they were getting offered really good jobs. And they were like, don't worry, I'll be back. And I no, you won't. Because they were making really good money and they were really, really talented. I will tell you that having the degree will never hurt you. People have asked me if I get the degree here and I want to go on for a 4-year degree, should I do that? It'll never hurt you. I would say if you're going to do that, try to get a job first and try to get a job at a place where they'll pay for your degree. All right? I had right out of high school, I was a punk. I graduated at 17 and I just, I thought I knew everything and I basically knew nothing. So I went to the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and got a 4-year degree. Okay? It was nice. They sold course notes there, so I hardly ever went to class. I was working 3 jobs at the time because I was supporting myself, etc. But I was a CB student. Then I went back for a 2-year degree, and I got married in the interim, and it mattered then. Then I became an A student. Then I got a job, and I wanted to go on for my master's degree, and I went to work at a place where as long as you got a C or above, they paid 100% of it, which was nice because every one of my classes was between $1,000 and $4,000. All right, so it was really nice. That's the kind of thing you want to shoot for. All right, so again, tomorrow you'll have time to work on stuff yourselves, but we'll also work on some stuff as a class. And then on Friday, notice written test chapter 2. Okay? What does that mean? When you come in here, you're going to actually get the first one tomorrow. You're going to get a test tomorrow. Don't let that throw you. It's not going to be graded. But I want you to see the types of tests that you'll be taking. So I've got a test for chapter 1. So you can see the way, and these are the author's tests. The people from business and industry who sit on our advisory committee have said, these people have to have the fundamentals drilled into them. Forwards, backwards, up and down. That's what they want. And I can't also say too much about what Shannon said and Barb, the Dean of Gen Ed, what she said. They're also looking for people who can talk. The day of an IT person being thrown in a corner, in a very dimly lit room and being just left there by themselves, it's pretty much gone. In fact, I had a guy who was one of my former students. He graduated about 15 years ago. He now runs a computer center in Janesville, Wisconsin. And he told me, Jeff, we're getting to the point where we're not even hiring your best people anymore. He said, because they're technically gifted, but quite often these technically gifted people can't write, and for the life of them, they can't talk at all. So we're hiring more marginal people who can fit into our culture. And you're going to hear that if you go to interview with a place. They will talk to you about their culture. All right? How you would fit into that culture. So we'll have that test. You'll get an hour to work on it. You know what? You might finish it in 10 minutes. If you finish it in 10 minutes, then go on. Start reading the next chapter, please. The other thing that you know, just so you know this too, is you'll immediately be graded. So as soon as you submit it, you'll get a grade back. Once you submit it, you can't change it. Oh, geez, I meant to say C for that one. No, that's tough. That's just the way that it is. It immediately goes into my grade book as well. All right, so as we're going through this stuff, if you have any questions, let me know. I'll be glad to stop. Then we'll go on, and the only other thing I want to show you here is when we get to about day 40, which is halfway through the class, it's really day 41. That's when we'll make the transition over from one book to the other book. All right, so once you get the books, this book right here is the only one that you have to bring for the first half of the class, and the other one's the only one you have to bring for the other half of the class. All right, just so you know, the plan at least now is this is the only class for which you'll have 2 books. Every other class you'll have 1 book. The book for spring is also an expensive book. Again, I'll give you Evan's email if you want to sit and complain about that. But that one's close to $200. All right, I'm just telling you that so you know it now. The book that we'll use a year from now, it's only about $50, and I think it's a very well-written book. I'm not sure which book we'll be using in that 4th semester, but the Android stuff, we're just going to use the web for our resources. All right, any questions on any of that? All right, then what I'll do is I'll tell you what, it's 10:37. If somebody will let me know when it gets, we'll just start this. About 10:45, we'll take a break. All right, you need a break. Even if you don't think you do, we all need one. All right, what I get as an instructor is there's a thing, it used to be called Course Smart, and now it's called Vital Source. Unfortunately, you don't get access to this. All right, in fact, I have to basically electronically agree to the fact that I'm not going to share this because this is your book online. All right, so this is out there. So what I want to do is I want to go over this, and I've got to see about focusing this. I don't know if you agree, but to me, is it just me? It really looks out of focus. Yeah. I can make it bigger and smaller, so I can come through here and I can do that. I don't know if is that better? all right? But it just doesn't look very good to me. So I'll have to talk to them and see if there's a focus or an autofocus on here. So what I'm gonna do then is I'm gonna start going over the stuff that's in the book. So if you have the book with you, you wanna turn to chapter 1. Again, if you don't, that's fine. All right. So we've got a bunch of objectives here. Again, what you'll find if you have me for enough classes is I don't like to read to you. All right? You even heard some of that in the presentation you were just at. And it was funny because 2 weeks ago I had to they make all new employees here take a new employee training class. And we had an individual, it wasn't Shannon, but we had an individual that wasn't there today, reading from a PowerPoint saying, don't ever read from PowerPoints. And was reading that from, which I thought it was kind of ironic. All right, but you're not going to see that. All right, so this chapter is sort of the history of the World Wide Web, the internet, how it came to be, etc. So that's what we're talking about today. All right, and ideally, the internet is part of everybody's life. All right, so when I talk about stuff like that, or if I tell you to Google something, it's not foreign to you. All right, we've all done it. So, again, don't want to read this. The internet actually itself is about 45 years old. And just so you know, it actually started as a way for different colleges to communicate with one another. That's the way that it was set up. All right? But not very long after that, the intelligence agency of our government got involved and said, oh, this is pretty cool. We could use this too. All right? So they were one of the major players in it. And it's funny, you may have heard this back, what was that, 2000 and whatever, when Al Gore was running for president and how he said how he invented the internet. What he actually meant, I believe, is he's one of the people who helped lay cable to start making these connections and allow this stuff to happen. All right. Over time, one thing you may or may not be aware of, because it actually started right around the end of 2015 or the beginning of 2016. There are now more people who look at websites using either their phone or a tablet than there are people who use desktops and laptops. In many ways, the desktop is becoming kind of an archaic animal. I watched on QVC a week or so ago, and they were trying to sell these. And the thing that was nice about it was 24 inches, so it was nice and big. It was touchscreen, which was nice, and basically it had no system unit. That's about the only way that today that a desktop can survive. All right, but everybody, my guess is that everyone in this room has some kind of a smartphone. You know, if you look, the Rankin, they've just fixed their website, and they've redone it in the last 2 weeks. You can go out to rankin.edu on your phone, and you can see some of the full motion video and some of the other stuff that's in there. Tim Berners-Lee is pretty much the person who is known as kind of the father of the internet, for lack of better words. See, I'd say in here, see, back when I was your age, there was a show on TV that was called American Bandstand. And you may have even seen this because he died a few years ago, but there was a guy named Dick Clark who started American Bandstand, and he also did those things at the end of the year that Ryan Seacrest now does for the New Year's Eve celebrations. Well, Dick Clark was kind of known as the father of rock and roll. In much the same way, Tim Berners-Lee is kind of known as the father of what today has become the World Wide Web. All right? All right. So again, they give you some history, and they talk about some stuff. It's not that it's not interesting, but again, our goal here is not to do this. Our goal here is to start doing stuff. So I don't want to spend a lot of time giving you history. The key thing is it says there's technically no one runs the internet. There are different places that oversee it, but it's not like there's one internet cop. All right. Intranet and extranets, if they talk to you about going out to inside.rankin, here, people who work here, we've also got an intranet.rankin. And that's got stuff, so all the committee meetings that they have on the campuses, they put their meeting minutes out there. So it's stuff that I can go into if I want to find out more stuff that goes on about the intricacies, and most companies have intranets, which might be available inside or outside, but it's company specific. On the other hand, if I'm a Walmart, and maybe I deal with Lowe's and I deal with Menards and a lot of other companies because I sell a lot of their products, then I might have an extranet. All right, so an intranet is internal, and extranet is more external. All right, one key thing that they're going to talk about throughout this book is accessibility. And I've heard it put to me like this, it's a little bit crude, but you know what? Anybody's money is good. Whether a person is deaf or blind or somewhere in between or has absolutely no physical problems. If they want to buy something, their money's all the same. But if you are working today, especially when you're working with the general public, all right, you have to, if you've never looked at it before, Google ADA. That's the, not Assistant District Attorney, that's the American Disabilities Act. And that basically says that if you are going to create a website, you want to make it as pleasant an experience as you can for anyone who might look at it. And the more you have to do with the public, so if you deal with the government, for example, you're going to be bound by those guidelines. All right. Next, universal design. You ever heard that the term today, they call it UX? It stands for user experience. The idea is you want to make websites that are as easy for people to peruse and look through as possible and as pleasant as possible. All right. You may or may not be aware of this. Does anybody know what the hardest color on the central nervous system is? Anybody know? Red. So you don't see a lot of websites typically that are red and have a red background. All right. You might know some, but there aren't usually a lot of them because they don't typically, anybody who has any kind of a personal problem, they don't deal well typically with things of that color. All right, I want to finish this and then we're going to take a break. So let me go through this as quick as I possibly can here. No, it's not letting me go forward. All right. What they're saying here is just because you read something on the web, I'm not going to even talk to you about political affiliations or anything else. I will say about Mr. Trump to say, oh, I believe it, I read it on the internet. That's today's equivalent of back years ago when people said, I believe it, I read it in the National Enquirer. But just because something appears on the internet doesn't mean it's true. And people say, well, yeah, it's true because I read it on Wikipedia, which is the electronic encyclopedia, right? The thing is, you may or may not be aware of this, anyone can put anything they want on Wikipedia. That doesn't mean if you put garbage out there, it'll stay there, but you can put it out there. All right, this is all hardware stuff. If you're interested in the hardware stuff, you really should take a class with Charles. So I'm going to let you read that on your own, okay? Just because I don't want to get too bogged down. I could give you my hardware stuff. The good news is I could probably give it to you in about 10 minutes. All right, I'm not a hardware guy. It's funny though when you tell people you work with computers, it's like when you're a doctor. You know, I don't go to a ton of parties, but when I do, people say, oh, I'm having this problem with my computer. It sounds like this. It's like when you talk to a mechanic. I've got this problem in my car. It sounds like this. What's wrong with it? All right, and people will do the same thing. And guess what? Sooner or later, they'll be doing it to you too. So talk about a client-server model. You're going to get hit with this stuff much, much more as we go on in here. It'll make more sense, okay? Different protocols are different ways of doing things. We're going to get into this. It's not that I'm trying to not go over the stuff with you, all right? You're going to know HTTP a lot more than you do right now. Even if you know it right now, you'll learn more about it. The hypertext transfer protocol, which is basically how stuff goes back and forth, all right, through the net. This is a URL, all right, and those are the different components. Again, that's not really that important right now, all right. What is important? If something starts with HTTP, that's the hypertext transfer protocol. You might have seen something that starts instead of HTTP, it might start with HTTPS. Which means that it's a secured connection. So typically, if I go out to Amazon, I'm on HTTP. Once I put something in my shopping cart and I go to my cart, it changes from HTTP to HTTPS. All right, which makes it a little bit more secure. You probably have seen at least some of these .coms, .nets, .gov, .mil, etc. And there's several of them. There's also country codes. All right. And just because you have a country code, you know, I know that there is at least one company that's got basically a thing for England, but they're a company that's based in America. All right. All right. They go through this in here, and I'll tell you what, this actually is a good place to stop. So when we come back, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to try to keep it down to like 5 minutes, literally. And so why don't we take 10 minutes again? If you want to go down below, and you go down about the second hallway, and you go in there, there are vending machines in there. There's a place that you can sit. And again, if you are a smoker, same kind of thing. You can go out the back door here, and it'll let you back in. I check it to be sure, but you should be able to. You heard the spiel already about smoking, so I'm not going to hit you with that again. Any questions on anything we've gone over so far? All right, then during the break, I'm going to try to start copying some of those first 3 chapters so that you have them.